Good afternoon. Welcome back to House Judiciary. We're going to resume with Senate File 99. We concluded public comment this morning, and now it's time for the committee to decide what it wants to do with Senate File 99. Do we have a motion, committee? Your pleasure. Moved by Representative Jennings, second by Representative Rodriguez-Williams. Any proposed amendments to the bill? Representative Oakley.
Maybe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just was trying to organize before we got here, get all my notes out. I guess I'll start explaining it conceptually first. I mean, we heard today, I think over and over, and I think it was agreed upon pretty much from everyone that this is a recognized disorder. It's in the DSM-5. And so my amendment is basically, I think it would be to add a new subsection D and to say that nothing in this article should be, let me see if I can find some language. Should be, should constrain any, psychological or psychiatric care. So recognizing that gender dysphoria is a medical condition, nothing in this article shall be construed to interfere with psychological or psychiatric care. And I think it's an important component because, like I said, this bill is about physiological changes. And what we've said and we've heard repeatedly is that this is in the realm of psychology, psychiatry, and that we need to give these children help. And so I think they pair well together. And so it would be to add subsection D, so it would be the way the bill.
On page 4?
The way the bill stands, it would be adding to the bottom of page 4 or the top of page 5. So after, I guess there's really not a line, you could say page 4, line 23.
You want to read that verbiage one more time, make sure Debbie has it?
I will, and I guess we can discuss if there's any sort of better cleanup. I think conceptually everybody understands it, but recognizing that gender dysphoria is a medical condition, nothing in this provision shall be construed to interfere with psychological or psychiatric care. I've had it written a couple different ways. That's just the one I found. It may not be the best, but again, I think we can work on it from there. Do I have a second?
Second by Provenza. Motion by Oakley. Further discussion on that amendment on page 4, line 23.
Yeah.
Representative Jennings.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Oakley. So as I read the catch title and I look through the bill, I guess I don't see any prohibition against it now. I don't know if I've missed it, or could you show what we're addressing with this amendment? That, I mean, it seems like it's already, it's not being touched.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Chairman Washut. I think it fits squarely in the bill. We talk about, we're talking about healthcare workers, healthcare providers. We're talking about specifically what care we can and cannot give to children who are facing gender dysphoria. That's squarely what the bill addresses. I've even discussed it, I did discuss it with some attorneys for what that's worth, in our good attorneys above, and they didn't see an issue either. I think it squarely addresses everything that's in this bill.
Further discussion. Representative Jennings.
Well, I'm reading a lot of things in here about, maybe a little bit on page 6. But I'm not seeing catch title, I'm not seeing anything here that really goes to the psychological or the mental part of that. So it seems like in the definitions, we would need to go back in and redefine, give a definition of what you're talking about for mental health issues. I'm not seeing where it's being prohibited now.
Representative Shestak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think psychiatrists for sure are covered under the definition of healthcare provider because they do have the ability to prescribe medicines. Psychologists, maybe not. Do psychologists render healthcare? Possibly. So I think this is actually a form of healthcare, mental health care. So I think both psychiatrists and psychologists are covered as healthcare providers. And the prohibition against, in the catch title, about gender transitioning, if they prescribe medicines to help ease the mental discomfort, is that defined, is that part of gender transitioning or not? That's debatable, but I clearly think that this is within the scope of the catch title, and I would therefore support this amendment.
Representative Oakley.
And just one last thing, I think everybody understands, but page 1, line 1, an act relating to public health and safety. Pretty broad.
Further discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question being called on the motion. All those in, Debbie, let's make sure you have the motion.
I feel like I had better versions of this, but again, I think we can get there. I've written it. Come on. Recognizing that gender dysphoria is a medical condition, nothing in this article shall be construed to interfere with psychological or psychiatric care.
You have that, Debbie? Okay. All those in favor of Representative Oakley's motion on line 23, page 4, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That motion carries. Further amendments. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I should have been down here earlier organizing. My computer's fighting me. Oh. Okay, so the amendment that I'm going to propose is to delete 2 words in the catch title, specifically to strike the 2 words Chloe's Law. And when you look at the remaining words as to that title, it says Children Gender Change Prohibition, which is the intent of the bill. It's the purpose of the bill. It's the policy which we're doing, which I am here in support of. But we discuss it all the time. We're taught from when we first start on this legislative adventure that is supposed to be straightforward, single subject, so that when you read it, you understand what the bill does. And while I do appreciate a very personal example, I think it helps us all understand what we're dealing with. But we are here in the Wyoming House, and we make policy and law for Wyoming people. And you know, from specifically this didn't happen in Wyoming. And I believe that we need to pass a bill that reflects Wyoming. We're here to do very thoughtful and serious decision-making. We heard a lot of passionate testimony on a bunch of sides, different sides today. And that's because this is very serious stuff. It's not to be catchy. It's to state what the policy of the law is. So I think this bill should have a title limited to what the bill does. We're not, passing law for any individual or person, and we're not getting involved in that. We're simply saying what is the policy, what is the intent that we're doing, which is what we do in every other bill. So with that, I make the motion to strike the two words Chloe's Law from the catch title.
Is there a second? Second by Provenza. Discussion. Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be a no vote on that amendment. We have seen legislation that's been passed. I've co-sponsored bills. First one that comes to mind was Sawyer's Law that dealt with discrimination access for organ transplant donors for developmentally disabled children. That was not too long ago. Again, I'll be a no vote.
Just since that was my bill, let me comment that Sawyer's Law was a nickname to the bill. Sawyer's Law was not contained in the title of the bill, and it was specifically left out on council of this very topic, that we don't put personal names. And just last week, I had a bill on Wyoming Reads, in which the names of the philanthropist and his wife were stricken on an amendment on the other end of the hall. Again, just reminding about not putting personal names in our green book. So further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none?
Question?
All in favor of Representative Oakley's amendment to strike Chloe's Law from the catch title, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The amendment has carried. Further amendments, Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got some really thoughtful ideas from somebody who has been a practitioner, as well as I know somebody's been really interested in the political process here, and she didn't get to testify, but I thought at least one was really good, and that is to add the word purposefully, which would be to, I thought I had it, to page 3, line 9. Perform a surgery that purposefully sterilizes the child, including castration. I think the idea, some of the concern from people who are practitioners, of course, would be any sort of like error or something. And again, I wish we'd been able to hear a little bit more from some of the medical community, but it certainly doesn't take anything away. That's what we're trying to do, right? Is prohibit people from choosing to do this. So if that catches anything, it seems that one person, maybe I saw knowingly, I don't care, but you get the concept. Do you think purposely is fine? So that's the amendment.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Chestic. So we have a motion by Representative Oakley, page 3, line 9, to insert the word purposely before sterilizes, and a second by Representative Chestic. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That carries. Debbie, do you have that? Okay. Representative Oakley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was discussed as much as we kind of had some of that open discussion during the last one, and that this is in regards to grandfathering and whether we want to do that. And I'd like to certainly have the discussion. So I will make the motion, and I guess we'll see what happens from there. This would be also on page 4, line 23. So the bottom, which would create a subsection 3, and basically say because of course you can notice that subsection C, that this would be under, says this section shall not apply to. And so this would be to add the words, any child who began such medical care prior to the enactment of this law, and it is determined by a healthcare provider to be in the best medical interest of the child. To continue, so.
One more time on that, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So bottom of page 4, adding a new subsection 3 would be that grandfather clause saying that, this section shall not apply to, then starting this word, any child who began such medical care prior to the enactment of this law, and it is determined by a healthcare provider to be in the best medical interest of the child to continue.
Debbie, do you have that?
Okay. Any child who began such medical care prior to the enactment of this law, and it is determined by a healthcare provider to be in the best medical interests of the child to continue.
Okay, is there a second?
No, I'm not
Second
seconding.
by Chesty. Discussion. Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd urge real caution on this one because this opens it up a lot. It looks to me like you could turn around and say, my 3-year-old said they wanted to be the opposite sex. And so you could start down this, theoretically, they would have started down this procedure just by having that thought put in their head or them having thought that. And so they would have been considered by a professional as having started down this procedure, down this road. And so I think this goes against the intent of the bill. I understand there's complications with the grandfathering aspect of it. I don't think it's a huge thing, but I think this opens it way back up. It creates a loophole that you could easily have anyone in this industry say, well, they talked to me about it. They had thoughts about changing. And so I'd be on and against this.
Further discussion. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that, and certainly the intent wouldn't be to, to create a loophole, and I agree with you. We are talking about, this is as we've heard, probably a relatively small subset of people as the law takes into effect. I would say that we have began. And I would be certainly open to any language tightening it up, which I think we could find. But it does say that, began this type of medical care, not, anybody who had a thought prior. But again, I'd be open to any language strengthening that if that is truly a concern about a loophole, if you will.
Might I suggest limiting it to those who've had the surgery prior to the effective date of the legislation? That if they're receiving any other level of care, they wouldn't be grandfathered. But if they've already had the surgery, which I think is even a smaller subset of people in the state of Wyoming. Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the testimony earlier today mentioned, is it safe to end I think the hormones immediately and not have some sort of transitioning phase? So that would be my concern with your suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll be a no vote on the amendment. I think it kind of opens up the door to some equal protection concerns. I think that we need to treat, when we create law, we need to treat all people the same, not differently. And from what I've learned, to answer the good representative to my right's question, from some physicians that have emailed me between the last meeting, committee meeting, and now, is that these hormones can be stopped safely. And so, again, I'll be on no vote.
Representative Craigle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is the comments these are along the lines of the comments I was talking about earlier. I don't want to create a loophole either. My question, and actually I was trying to hone in on, I think, Mr. Chairman, you brought it up, children who've actually already had a surgery and are on aftercare. That's what I was trying to focus in on as you were talking about. I wasn't thinking as much about the hormone treatment and how you scale off of that, although I think that's a valid question. I don't know, but I was really concerned because if, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but if they've had the surgery and they are on aftercare, what do they have to, what kind of medical treatment do they need? What kind of hormonal treatment? I don't know the answer to that. We really didn't get that testimony, but that was the very small subset that I was trying to focus in on and ask questions about earlier on, was what do we do with those? And so I tend to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that we probably could narrow that language down a little bit and specifically to those kids, those children who've actually had the surgery. And maybe it's none. Maybe we're talking about nobody. I don't know the answer to that. We didn't have specific statistics here earlier today. So I would be with you, Mr. Chairman, on that proposal.
Further conversation on this amendment. So the amendment as written is who has begun such care prior to the effective date. Everybody know what we're voting on? Sensing a desire to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no? No. That motion has failed. Any further motions? No? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's several constitutional concerns with this bill. And we keep running into this issue where the government wants to tell people what to do with their bodies or their children's bodies. And we keep skimming over this Article 38, right to healthcare access. And any person, the parent, guardian, or legal representative of any other natural person shall have the right to make healthcare decisions for that person. I'm starting to get whiplash from the conversations that we're having in this body about parental rights, and now we're talking about that they don't have the rights in this case. I mean, to quote one of my good colleagues from not this committee, but specifically, Representative Ward said, "I just don't think it's the business of the state to be in between the parent and child relationship like this. The state is not in the business of being a parent." Last week, that resonated real well. This week, we seem to have forgotten all the work we did on parental rights. We need to make up our mind. And additionally, what my good colleague to my left mentioned, equal protection problems. This bill targets a specific child, a specific type of child. The whole bill is an equal protection problem. This is going to be challenged, just like the other bills that we've mentioned that are unconstitutional, and this is not going to stand, just like it hasn't in other states. This is the government infringing on a particular class of people. This is about the government pretending like they know better than the two people who love their children the most and inserting themselves in doctors' offices because of ideology, not fact, not science, and not good policy.
Further comments on the bill? Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, well, I agree with some of the statement. I think that for people thinking about this on the other side, I wrote the parental rights bill. We did not touch endangerment, abuse, or neglect. And we didn't do that for a very purposeful reason. There are occasions where states should step in. If parents decided that this was a horrible world and they just decided to take their child out and murder it, we want the state to step in. And so the issue here is, it may be challenged constitutionally. I wouldn't disagree that it could be. But the point to this bill is that we're making a legislative decision as do we think this is a statutorily okay thing, or does it fit into the parameters of neglect or abuse? I would argue that it has abuse attached to it, that we're making lifelong decisions for that child that they are not old enough to make for themselves. And so from that standpoint, I felt compelled to tell why it is not contradictory. It is a question of we're defining whether or not we believe this is an abusive behavior from the parents. So, on and for the bill.
Further discussion? Seeing none, sensing an urge to call the question. Question being called. Please call the roll on Senate File 99.
Representative Chestick? No. Representative Crago? Representative Harrelson?
Aye.
Representative Jennings? Representative Nemec?
Aye.
Representative Oakley?
Aye.
Representative Provenza? No. Representative Rodriguez Williams?
Aye.
And Chairman Washut?
Aye.
We have a total of 7 ayes and 2 noes.
And for the sponsor, do you have a House member to carry the bill for you on the floor? Do you have a House member to carry the bill for you on the floor? Representative Penn? Very good.